Now we're going to just introduce a couple of more risks. Less likely risks, hurricane and weather. I was going to say until quite recently that you can avoid hurricanes by staying out of hurricane season. Well, hurricanes powered by warm water. As the ocean temperatures are coming up, we're going to be seeing more and more hurricanes happening out of the regular season. So do keep an eye. You can't just sail from here and know that you're not going to encounter a hurricane. It's becoming more and more likely, so keep your eyes open. You stay out of the way. We'll talk about lightning in a moment. Piracy also, you can, for the most part, piracy, you go online, you look at the piracy map, you say, I'm not going to sail there. Or you can say, I accept that risk and I am going to sail there. It's up to you. Running out of water, equipment failure. We'll talk about some of the likely equipment failures that are going to happen. Flooding and sinking. Well, flooding and sinking are different aspects of the same thing. Flooding is you had a leak. Sinking is you had a leak that was big enough that you couldn't take care of it. So it's just a matter of degree. There's a lot of concern about striking underwater objects like whales and containers. These are actually not that common. How many of you have ever run aground? Yeah, everybody runs aground. Running aground is a matter of degree and luck. If you hit the sharp rock when you ran aground, it's a dangerous situation. Otherwise, it's just inconvenient. So you're much more likely to ground than you are, and you're much more likely to have a mechanical failure of a hose clamp or something that floods your boat. The nice thing about that kind of flooding is once you see the water puddling around the bottom of your cabin, you go down and you find the leak and you put a bung in it and fix it. This is much more the way to go. Lastly, I put in loss of crew. Well, this was a very unfortunate situation, but it's fortunately rare. You can lose crew to man overboard, illness, or injury. And we'll talk about that in greater detail. Talking about loss of boat, here we have a picture. The good news about pictures like this, you see them all over the web. You do a search for sinking boat, bunches of them. These are people that brought their camera with them, so the people are okay. It's only the boat that's lost. We prefer it that way. So it's as unfortunate a situation as this might be. If you lose a boat, you'd rather not lose yourself. A few sure things. Things are going to break, and Mike talked Monday a lot about chafe. I can tell you a lot about chafe. You will get banged up. It's only a matter of a degree. Little things. I put my hand out as the boat lurched. Instead of my hand breaking my fall, my thumb bent back. And 6 weeks in a splint, and the tendon's as good as new. But Kathy had a wonderful shiner on her eye. One of the fellows on the trip fell out of his bunk, cracked 3 ribs. Ratcheting up, one fellow at anchor was doing something with his windmill. Lost the end of his index finger. So things like this, these are minor injuries, but they can grow into things that are very, very unpleasant. You take a long trip, you will get tired. Let's talk about how many of you are single-handing? 2? 3 on board? How big? All of you have big crews. 2, okay. Good. As I say, Kathy and I do that, but you do get tired, and the problem of tired is twofold. The first is that every problem you encounter seems bigger than it was if you weren't tired when you encountered it, and you may make some not so good decisions about fixing the problem. So not being tired, doing your best to do things so you don't get too tired is important. Back at things that break. Well, you look around at what is the average use of a boat. Well, best statistic I can come up with is a sailboat is typically used 100 hours a year. So you get your boat, and so a lot of the stuff that's on the boat is designed to be used 100 hours a year. Now you're going to go from here, say you go from here to French Polynesia, you're going to run your boat for 3 weeks straight. You're going to put 5 years worth of wear on it. So if you, over a 5-year period in the bay, if you lost a couple of halyards and had to replace them, you'd say, well, that's nothing. But if you lose 2 halyards between here and French Polynesia, suddenly it seems like a big deal, but it's the same wear. It's just so concentrated, and a lot of that equipment is really not designed to take it. Okay, Kathy and I, by the way, had a lot of chafe problems. We can talk the rest of the evening about chafe problems. Let's talk about lightning. Lots of people are concerned about lightning, and here are a few things. It represents about 1% of claims for the boat US, so it's a significant cause of damage. Lightning on a sailboat, and I say it's almost never fatal. I did not see a single case of a fatality, but I didn't want somebody to be able to raise their hand and say, oh yeah, I knew somebody. No, that's not right. So almost never fatal. Huge problem for electronics, and you got to make sure your boat is grounded. If you go around and you look at the bottoms of where your shrouds are connected to the boat, you're likely to see a little copper ribbon that goes down and is connected to something. If your mast step and your shrouds are not connected to something that's connected to the water, then the lightning that hits your mast will find its own way to the water, and it may do so by burning a hole through your hull, and then it becomes an inconvenience. This is something that I learned in preparing for this. Lightning risk goes down as you go offshore. Here we have a chart that's provided by NASA. NASA has put up a satellite that has a sensor that senses lightning flashes. And it turns out that lightning is a shoreside phenomenon. And you can imagine the reason for this is that, well, when you have a lightning storm, you have a lot of turbulence that causes this lightning. As long as you don't have any landforms, the wind is blowing smoothly across the ocean, no turbulence, no lightning to speak of. So, zooming in on the trip here, Puerto Vallarta is up there. When you're in Puerto Vallarta, you're in the orange section, and it's just off the edge, so we can't read the chart, but once you go maybe 100 miles offshore, you're in the light blues and dark blues, and your lightning risk has gone down by a factor of 10. Once you go another 100 miles, your lightning risk has gone down by a factor of 10 again. So once you get offshore, your lightning risk is essentially not a risk anymore. Now, boats are struck here in the marina by lightning every year and destroyed, or all their electronics are lost, or something or other. But the concern that you're going to be 1,000 miles offshore and you're going to be struck by lightning and all of your instruments are going to go isn't a very likely occurrence. It is an extremely unlikely occurrence. How many of you, by the way, know how to do celestial navigation? So we're all relying on our instruments, all right? And that's perfectly okay. And you stop to think about it, even if you were out in the middle of the ocean and the GPS system worldwide conks out, a lot of other people like the military and all of the aviation and commercial shipping, they're going to be in a lot worse shape than you. Because your concern is, well, how do I keep going in the same direction and I hope I can see the island? Well, it turns out you can actually see islands by the clouds that they form, maybe 100 miles away, so you're in pretty good shape that way. So lightning is a very unlikely occurrence. I put it over here on the left-hand side because it's so unlikely, and even if it happened, it isn't going to cause a lot of damage.